I'm very excited here to have the chance to interview Mark van Stone. Mark is a professor of art history at Southwestern College in Chula Vista in California. And he is one of the people that have been studying the Mayan glyphs and learning to read them for about 25 years. He's written a book together with Michael Coe, which is called Reading the Mayan Glyphs. And he's also written a book, which is this one, a more recent book, which is called 2012 Science and Prophecy of the Ancient Maya. And it is this book that I particularly want to ask him questions about. I think by writing this book, Mark has made a unique contribution. All what you might say academic Mayanists, of course, are aware that there is an end to the Mayan calendar coming soon. But what Mark has done is to have compiled all the ancient sources from the Maya about this particular shift point in the calendar. The whole field of Mayanism, of studying the calendar of the Maya, it used to be maybe 20, 30, 50 years ago, it would have been seen as a very dusty, very specialized academic pursuit, only for true enthusiasts who were fascinated by this, in many ways, enigmatic culture. Now, at the current time, a tremendous amount of people in the world are actually aware of this end to the calendar and have opinions about it. And maybe not everyone realized that the only sources that we have about this is actually the inscriptions of the ancient Maya. So it's important for anyone who is interested in this phenomenon to be able to extract what is actual Mayan ancient inscriptions and what are just modern projections, just modern opinions about what the Maya would have said. And so I'd like to start by asking you, Mark, how big is this club of people that can, in some sense, read the Mayan glyphs?
Of course, there's different amounts of legibility, or what should I say, different amounts of ability to read. And I would say that there's probably 10 or 12 people that are thoroughly engrossed in deciphering hieroglyphs all the time. They do it every day, and they're all the time coming up with new things. There's probably another, say, 200 to 500 people like me who can, read them passably, and who have some, and maybe of those people, maybe 100 have the opportunity to teach it once in a while. There's at least 5 or 6 annual forums that around the world where people have classes in hieroglyphs. I know of one in Europe, maybe 2 in Europe, and at least 3 in the United States. There's probably others that I'm not aware of. Of course, there's 3 major books about how to read Maya hieroglyphs. One is the one that I wrote with Michael Coe. Shall I say Mike Coe wrote it and I illustrated it. And there's another one by John Montgomery. And there's a third one at the University of Pennsylvania. And I'm sorry, the author's name escapes me at the moment. But you can teach yourself about how to read Maya hieroglyphs with these 3 books. It's not so difficult. You can study Maya hieroglyphs the same way you study Egyptian hieroglyphs.
If you are to look at a new inscription from the Maya, the ancient Maya, I should say, the writing starts maybe around 300 AD and the classical culture lasts until 900 AD.
That's right.
How would you go about what is the first thing you do? How do you go about reading such glyphs and inscription?
The dates are the easiest thing to decipher. They were deciphered 100 years ago, and the distance numbers, the intervals between the dates, it took a lot longer until about 1950 before people realized that the content of a lot of these inscriptions was mainly phonetic, and it took a little bit longer still to realize it was historical, about 1960. And trying to figure out what the verbs were and what the participants were took until about 1973 or 74. And once you structure an inscription, the first thing you do when you look at an inscription is you look for the dates, and then you collect all of the glyphs that follow a date, and that's going to be the sentence of telling you what happened on that date. And you string out those sentences in a line with the date here, and the text after it, and then the date here, and then the text after it. You line up the verbs and the nouns, you're going to find that they often are fairly repetitive or fairly formulaic. And you learn to read the verbs for birth, for death, for crowning, for war. You learn to read the names of the places. And those things are pretty commonly featured, and they appear prominently in inscriptions. And so you can get an idea at least where the thing is from, who did it. You can correlate the dates pretty well with Christian dates and with other dates in the Maya history.
When it comes to this date, 130000, which is the 2012 date, can you summarize what is the actual information available from ancient inscriptions as to the meaning of this?
The only text that mentions 13000 without talking about the original creation 3,000 years ago, 3000 BC, is Tortuguero Monument 6, at the very end of which it goes through the text talking about wars and talking about the kingly duties and things like that. And then at the very end it says, oh, by the way, 1,200 years in the future, it will be 130000. It will be the end of 13 Baktuns, and a god named Bolonyok will descend, and he will put on a ceremonial costume. And that text it stops there. That's all it tells us, is that this obscure god, Bolonyok will get dressed. This has many implications. It's, what is the context? It's a context of series of wars that the kings fought in their own time, the 600s AD, 669, 671. And they are somehow relating their own wars with this end of the 13 Baktuns. It doesn't say that the calendar will come to an end at that time. It just says that Bolonyok will come down and have a ceremony. And interestingly, there are many other future texts, and one goes to, like at Palenque, there's a text which casts ahead of the future, but it only casts to 10000. And it then skips ahead to what would be 20000 and 20 Baktuns in the future, which is 4772 AD. And at that period, of course, when you get to 20 in the Maya counting system, you click up to an extra digit. So it goes from 19, whatever, on up to 1.00000. So it becomes a 6-digit number in the Maya counting system. And what I think is very striking and very important about that particular future prophecy in Palenque is that it says that the world will go on after 130000, that people would still be celebrating the coronation of their king. So they expected their kingdom to be not forgotten. They expected people to be celebrating just as they are today. So at least in Palenque, the priests, the people in charge, the kings, the carvers of the monuments seem to have believed that the calendar did not come to an end in 13000, but just went on to 14, into 15, into 16. I want to note that of the other future events I looked at, and the other sort of long dates that we find on monuments, that apparently different cities had different schools of thought about the calendar when it gets to that date. In Tikal, or let me say this, in Palenque, they had the idea that it would simply be 10000 in the year 4774 AD.